The lights. God spoke to Moses, tell Aaron, install the 7 lamps so that they will throw light in front of the lampstand. Aaron did just that. He installed the lamps so that they threw light in front of the lampstand as God had instructed Moses. The lampstand was made of hammered gold from its stem to its petals. It was made precisely to the design God had shown Moses. Purifying the Levites. God spoke to Moses, take the Levites from the midst of the people of Israel and purify them for doing God's work. This is the way you will do it. Sprinkle water of absolution on them and have them shave their entire bodies. Have them scrub their clothes, and they will have purified themselves. Have them take a young bull with its accompanying grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, plus a second young bull for an absolution offering. Bring the Levites to the front of the tent of meeting and gather the entire community of Israel. Present the Levites before God as the people of Israel lay their hands on them. Aaron will present the Levites before God as a wave offering from the people of Israel so that they will be ready to do God's work. Have the Levites place their hands on the heads of the bulls, selecting one for the absolution offering and another for the whole burnt offering to God to make atonement for the Levites. Then have the Levites stand in front of Aaron and his sons and present them as a wave offering to God. This is the procedure for setting apart the Levites from the rest of the people of Israel. The Levites are exclusively for my use. After you've purified the Levites and presented them as a wave offering to God, they can go to work in the tent of meeting. The Levites have been selected out of the people of Israel for my exclusive use. They function in place of every firstborn male born to an Israelite woman. Every firstborn male in Israel, animal or human, is set apart for my use. When I struck down all the firstborn of Egypt, I consecrated them for my holy uses. But now I take the Levites as stand-ins in place of every firstborn son in Israel. Selected out of the people of Israel, and I've given the Levites to Aaron and his sons to do all the work involved in the tent of meeting on behalf of all the people of Israel and to make atonement for them so that nothing bad will happen to them when they approach the sanctuary. Moses, Aaron, and the entire community of the people of Israel carried out these procedures with the Levites just as God had commanded Moses. The Levites purified themselves and scrubbed their clothes. Then Aaron presented them as a wave offering before God and made atonement for them to purify them. Only then did the Levites go to work at the tent of meeting. Aaron and his sons supervised them following the directions God had given. God spoke to Moses. These are the instructions regarding the Levites. At the age of 25, they will join the workforce in the tent of meeting. At the age of 50, they must retire from the work. They can assist their brothers in the task in the tent of meeting, but they are not permitted to do the actual work themselves. These are the ground rules for the work of the Levites. Numbers chapter 9, Passover. God spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after leaving Egypt. Have the people of Israel celebrate Passover at the set time. Celebrate it on schedule on the evening of the 14th day of this month, following all the rules and procedures. Moses told the people of Israel to celebrate the Passover, and they did. In the wilderness of Sinai at evening of the 14th day of the first month, the people of Israel did it all just as God had commanded Moses. But some of them couldn't celebrate the Passover on the assigned day because they were ritually unclean on account of a corpse. So they presented themselves before Moses and Aaron on Passover and told Moses, we have been ritually unclean because of a corpse. But why should we be barred from bringing God's offering along with the other Israelites on the set day of Passover? Moses said, give me some time. I'll find out what God says in your circumstances. God spoke to Moses, tell the people of Israel, if one or another of you is ritually unclean because of a corpse, or you happen to be off on a long trip, you may still celebrate God's Passover, but celebrate it on the 14th day of the second month at evening. Eat the lamb together with unraised bread and bitter herbs. Don't leave any of it until morning. Don't break any of its bones. Follow all the procedures. But a man who is ritually clean and is not off on a trip and still fails to celebrate the Passover must be cut off from his people because he did not present God's offering at the set time. That man will pay for his sin. Any foreigner living among you who wants to celebrate God's Passover is welcome to do it, but he must follow all the rules and procedures. The same procedures go for both foreigner and native born. The cloud. The day the dwelling was set up, the cloud covered the dwelling in the tent of testimony. From sunset until daybreak, it was over the dwelling. It looked like fire. It was like that all the time. The cloud over the dwelling, and at night looking like fire. When the cloud lifted above the tent, the people of Israel marched out. And when the cloud descended, the people camped. The people of Israel marched at God's command, and they camped at his command. As long as the cloud was over the dwelling, they camped. Even when the cloud hovered over the dwelling for many days, they honored God's command and would march. They stayed in camp, obedient to God's command, as long as the cloud was over the dwelling. But the moment God issued orders, they marched. If the cloud stayed only from sunset to daybreak, then they lifted at daybreak. They marched. Night or day, it made no difference. When the cloud lifted, they marched. It made no difference whether the cloud hovered over the dwelling for 2 days or a month or a year. As long as the cloud was there, they were there. And when the cloud went up, they got up and marched. They camped at God's command, and they marched at God's command. They lived obediently by God's orders as delivered by Moses. Numbers chapter 10, the 2 bugles. God spoke to Moses, make 2 bugles of hammered silver. Use them to call the congregation together and give marching orders to the camps. When you blow them, the whole community will meet you at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When a bugle gives a single short blast, that's the signal for the leaders, the heads of the clans, to assemble. When it gives a long blast, that's the signal to march. At the first blast, the tribes who were camped on the east set out. At the second blast, the camps on the south set out. The long blasts are the signals to march. The bugle call that gathers the assembly is different from the signal to march. The sons of Aaron, the priests, are in charge of blowing the bugles. It's their assigned duty down through the generations. When you go to war against an oppressor, blow a long blast on the bugle so that God will notice you and deliver you from your enemies. Also at times of celebration, at the appointed feasts and new moon festivals, blow the bugles over your whole burnt offerings and peace offerings. They will keep your attention on God. I am God, your God. The march from Sinai to Paran. In the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, the cloud went up from over the dwelling of the testimony. At that, the people of Israel set out on their travels from the wilderness of Sinai until the cloud finally settled in the wilderness of Paran. They began their march at the command of God through Moses. The flag of the camp of Judah led the way, rank after rank, under the command of Nahshon, son of Amminadab. Nathaniel, son of Zuar, commanded the forces of the tribe of Issachar, and Eliab, son of Helon, commanded the forces of the tribe of Zebulun. As soon as the dwelling was taken down, the Gershonites and the Merarites set out carrying the dwelling. The flag of the camp of Reuben was next, with Eliezer, son of Shedeur, in command. Shelumiel, son of Jehoshaphat, commanded the forces of the tribe of Simeon. Eliasaph, son of Deuel, commanded the forces of the tribe of Gad. Then the Kohathites left carrying the holy things. By the time they arrived, the dwelling would be set up. The flag of the tribe of Ephraim moved out next, commanded by Elishama, son of Ammihud. Gamaliel, son of Pedazur, commanded the forces of the tribe of Manasseh. Abidan, son of Gideai, commanded the forces of the tribe of Benjamin. Finally, under the flag of the tribe of Dan, the rear guard of all the camps marched out with Ahiezer, son of Mishaddai, in the command. Pagiel, son of Okran, commanded the forces of the tribe of Asher. Ahira, son of Enan, commanded the forces of the tribe of Naphtali. These were the marching units of the people of Israel. They were on their way. Moses said to his brother-in-law, Hobab, son of Ruel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, "We're marching to the place about which God promised. I'll give it to you. Come with us. We'll treat you well. God has promised good things for Israel." But Hobab said, "I'm not coming. I'm going back home to my own country, to my own family." Moses countered, "Don't leave us. You know all the best places in the camp in Israel. We need your eyes. If you come with us, we'll make sure that you share in all the good things that God will do for us." And off they marched. From the mountain of God, they marched 3 days with the chest of the covenant of God in the lead to scout out a campsite. The cloud of God was above them by day when they marched from the camp, with the chest leading the way. Moses would say, "Get up, God. Put down your enemies. Chase those who hate you to the hills." Get up, God. And when the chest was set down, he would say, "Rest with us, God. Stay with the many, many thousands of Israel." Numbers chapter 11. Camp Taberah. The people fell to grumbling over their hard life. God heard. When he heard, his anger flared. Then fire blazed up and burned the outer boundaries of the camp. The people cried out for help to Moses. Moses prayed to God, and the fire died down. They named the place Taberah, which means blaze, because fire from God had blazed up against them. Camp Kibroth Hattavah. The misfits among the people had a craving, and soon they had the people of Israel whining, "Why can't we have meat? We ate fish in Egypt and got it free, to say nothing of the cucumbers and melons, the leeks and onions and garlic. But nothing tastes good out here. All we get is this manna, manna, manna." Manna was a seed-like substance with a shiny appearance like resin. The people went around collecting it and ground it between stones or pounded it fine in a mortar. Then they boiled it in a pot and shaped it into cakes. It tasted like a delicacy cooked in olive oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna was right there with it. Moses heard the whining, all those families whining in front of their tents. God's anger blazed up. Moses saw that things were in a bad way. Moses said to God, why are you treating me this way? What did I ever do to you to deserve this? Did I conceive them? Was I their mother? So why dump the responsibility of this people on me? Why tell me to carry them around like a nursing mother? Carry them all the way to the land you promised to their ancestors. Where am I supposed to get meat for all these people who are whining to me? Give us meat. We want meat. I can't do this by myself. It's too much. All these people, if this is how you intend to treat me, do me a favor and kill me. I've seen enough. I've had enough. Let me out of here. Wow. God said to Moses, gather together 70 men from among the leaders of Israel, men who you know to be respected and responsible. Take them to the tent of meeting. I'll meet you there. I'll come down and speak with you. I'll take some of the spirit that is on you and place it on them. They'll be able to take some of the load. They'll then be able to take some of the load of this people. You won't have to carry the whole thing alone. Tell the people, consecrate yourselves. Get ready for tomorrow when you're going to eat meat. You've been whining to God. We want meat. Give us meat. We had a better life in Egypt. God has heard your whining. He's going to give you meat. You're going to eat meat. And it's not just for a day that you'll eat meat, not for 2 days or 5 or 10 or 20, but for a whole month. You're going to eat meat until it's coming out your nostrils. You're going to be so sick of meat that you'll throw up at the mere mention of it. And here's why. Because you've rejected God, who is right here among you. Whine into his face. Or why did we ever have to leave Egypt? Moses said, I am standing here surrounded by 600,000 men on foot, and you say, I'll give them meat every day for a month. So where is it coming from? Even if all the flocks and herds were butchered, would that be enough? Even if all the fish in the sea were caught, would that be enough? God answered Moses, so do you think I can't take care of you? You'll see soon whether what I say happens for you or not. So Moses went out and told the people what God had said. He called together 70 of the leaders and had them stand around the tent. God came down in a cloud and spoke to Moses and took some of the spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 leaders. When the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they didn't continue. It was a one-time event. Meanwhile, 2 men, Eldad and Medad, had stayed in the camp. They were listed as leaders, but they didn't leave camp to go to the tent. Still, the Spirit also rested on them, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and told Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua, son of Nun, who had been Moses' right hand since his youth, said, Moses, Master, stop them. But Moses said, are you jealous for me? Would that all God's people were prophets. Would that God would put his Spirit on all of them. Then Moses and the leaders of Israel went back to the camp. A wind set in motion by God swept quails in from the sea. They piled up to a depth of about 3 feet in the camp and as far out as a day's walk in every direction. All that day and night and into the next day, the people were out gathering the quail, huge amounts of quail. Even the slowest person among them gathered at least 60 bushels. They spread them out all over the camp for drying. But while they were still chewing the quail and had hardly swallowed the first bites, God's anger blazed out against the people. He hit them with a terrible plague. They ended up calling the place Kibroth Hattaavah, which means graves of the craving. There they buried the people who craved meat. From Kibroth Hattaavah, they marched on to Hazeroth. They remained at Hazeroth. Numbers chapter 12, Camp Hazeroth. Miriam and Aaron talked against Moses behind his back because of the Cushite wife. He had married a Cushite woman. They said, is it only through Moses that God speaks? Doesn't he also speak through us? God overheard their talk. Now, the man Moses was a quietly humble man more than anyone living on earth. Of course, he would say that because he's writing this. God broke in suddenly on Moses and Aaron and Miriam, saying, come out, you 3, to the tent of meeting. The 3 went out. God descended in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance to the tent. He called Aaron and Miriam to him. When they stepped out, he said, listen carefully to what I'm telling you. If there's a prophet of God among you, I make myself known to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. But I don't do it that way with my servant Moses. He has the run of my entire house. I speak to him intimately in person, in plain talk without riddles. He ponders the very form of God. So why did you show no reverence or respect in speaking against my servant, against Moses? The anger of God blazed out against them, and then he left. When the cloud moved off from the tent, Miriam had turned leprous, her skin like snow. Aaron took one look at Miriam, a leper. He said to Moses, please, my master, please don't come down so hard on us for this foolish and thoughtless sin. Please don't make her like a stillborn baby coming out of its mother's womb with half of its body decomposed. And Moses prayed to God, please, God, heal her. Please heal her. You need to, because she's the one that looked after you when you were in that river in that basket. Now, that's my commentary. God answered Moses, if her father had spat in her face, wouldn't she be ostracized for 7 days? Quarantine her outside the camp for 7 days. Then she can be readmitted to the camp. So Miriam was in quarantine outside the camp for 7 days. The people didn't march on until she was readmitted. Only then did the people march from Hazeroth and set up camp in the wilderness of Paran. Now that is something, because Moses was married to the priest of Midian's daughter, and now he's married to Cushite. Okay. All right, Numbers chapter 13. Scouting out Canaan. You learned something new. God spoke to Moses, send men to scout out the country of Canaan that I'm giving to the people of Israel. Send one man from each ancestral tribe, each one a tried and true leader in the tribe. So Moses sent them all from the wilderness of Paran at the command of God. All of them were leaders in Israel, one from each tribe. These were the names: from Reuben, Shammua, son of Zakur; from Simeon, Shaphat, son of Hori; from Judah, Caleb, son of Jephunneh; from Issachar, Egal, son of Joseph; from Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun; from Benjamin, Palti, son of Raphu; from Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodai; from Manasseh, a Joseph tribe, Gadai, son of Susai; from Dan, Amiel, son of Gemalli; from Asher, Sethur, son of Michael; from Naphtali, Nabi, son of Ophi; from Gad, Guel, son of Maki. These are the names of the men Moses sent to scout out the land. Moses gave Hoshea, whose name means salvation, son of Nun, a new name, Joshua, which means God saves. When Moses sent them off to scout out Canaan, he said, go up through the Negev and then to the hill country. Look the land over, see what it's like. Assess the people. Are they strong or weak? Are there few or many? Observe the land. Is it pleasant or harsh? Describe the towns where they live. Are they open camps or fortified walls? And the soil, is it fertile or barren? Are there forests? And try to bring back a sample of the produce that grows there. This is the season for the first ripe grapes. With that, they were on their way. They scouted out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob toward Lebo Hamath. Their route went through the Negev desert to the town of Hebron. Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmi, descendants of the giant Anak, lived there. Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they arrived at the Eshcol Valley, they cut off a branch with a single cluster of grapes. It took 2 men to carry it, slung on a pole. They also picked some pomegranates and figs. They named the place Eshcol Valley, which means Grape Cluster Valley, because of the huge cluster of grapes they had cut down there. After 40 days of scouting out the land, they returned home. They presented themselves before Moses and Aaron and the whole congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They reported to the whole congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told the story of their trip. We went to the land to which you sent us, and oh, it does flow with milk and honey. Just look at this fruit. The only thing is that the people who live there are fierce. Their cities are huge and well fortified. Worse yet, we saw descendants of the giant Anak. Amalekites are spread out in the Negev. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites hold the hill country, and the Canaanites are established on the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan. Caleb interrupted, called for silence before Moses, and said, let's go up and take the land now. We can do it. But others said, we can't attack these people. They're way stronger than we are. They spread scary rumors among the people of Israel. They said, we scouted out the land from one end to the other. It's a land that swallows people whole. Everybody we saw was huge. Why, we even saw the Nephilim giants. The Anak giants come from Nephilim. Alongside them, we felt like grasshoppers, and they looked down on us as if we were grasshoppers. Numbers chapter 14. The whole community was in an uproar, wailing all night long. All the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The entire community was on it. Why didn't we die in Egypt or in this wilderness? Why has God brought us in this country to kill us? Our wives and children are about to become plunder. Why don't we just head back to Egypt and right now? Soon they were all saying it to one another. Let's pick a new leader. Let's head back to Egypt. Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in front of the entire community gathered in emergency session. Joshua, son of Nun, Caleb, son of Jephunneh, members of the scouting party, ripped their clothes and addressed the assembled people of Israel. The land we walked through and scouted out is a very good land, very good indeed. If God is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land, a land that flows, as they say, with milk and honey, and he'll give it to us. Just don't rebel against God, and don't be afraid of those people. Why? We'll have them for lunch. They have no protections. God is on our side. Don't be afraid of them. But up in arms now, the entire community was talking of hurling stones at them. Just then the bright glory of God appeared at the tent of meeting. Every Israelite saw it. God said to Moses, how long will these people treat me like dirt? How long refuse to trust me? And with all these signs I've done among them, I've had enough. I'm going to hit them with a plague and kill them. But I'll make you into a nation bigger and stronger than they were. But Moses said to God, the Egyptians are going to hear about this. You delivered this people from Egypt with a great show of strength. And now this, the Egyptians will tell everyone. They've already heard that you are God, that you are on the side of the people, that you are present among them, that they see you with their own eyes and your clouds that hovers over them, and the pillar of cloud that leads them by day, and the pillar of fire at night. If you kill this entire people in one stroke, all the nations that have heard what has been going on will say, since God couldn't get these people into the land which he'd promised to give them, he slaughtered them out in the wilderness. Now, please, let the power of the master expand, enlarge itself greatly, along the lines you've laid out earlier when you said, God, slow to get to anger and huge in loyal love, forgiving iniquity and rebellion and sin, still never just whitewashing sin, but extending the fallout of parent sins to children into the third, even the fourth generation. Please forgive the wrongdoing of this people out of the extravagance of your loyal love, just as all along from the time they left Egypt, you have been forgiving this people. God said, I forgive them, honoring your words, but as I live and as the glory of God fills the whole earth, not a single person of those who saw my glory, saw the miracle signs I did in Egypt and the wilderness, and who have tested me over and over and over again, turning a deaf ear to me, not one of them will set eyes on the land I so solemnly promised to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with such repeated contempt will see it. But my servant Caleb, this is a different story. He has a different spirit. He follows me passionately. I'll bring him into the land that he scouted, and his children will inherit it. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are so well established in the valleys, for right now, change course and head back into the wilderness, following the route to the Red Sea. God spoke to Moses and Aaron. How long is this going to go on? All this grumbling against me by this evil, infested community. I've had my fill of complaints from these grumbling Israelites. Tell them, as I live, God's decree, here's what I'm going to do. Your corpses are going to litter the wilderness. Every one of you 20 years and older who is counted in the census, this whole generation of grumblers and grousers, not one of you will enter the land and make your home there, the firmly and solemnly promised land, except for Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. Your children, the very ones you said would be taken for plunder, I'll bring in to enjoy the land you rejected, while your corpses will be rotting in the wilderness. These children of yours will live as shepherds in the wilderness for 40 years, living with fallout of your whoring unfaithfulness until the last of your generation lies a corpse in the wilderness. You scouted out the land for 40 days. Your punishment will be a year for each day, a 40-year sentence to serve for your sins, a long schooling in my displeasure. I, God, have spoken. I will most certainly carry out these things against this entire evil, infested community, which is banded together against me. In this wilderness, they will come to their end. There they will die. So it happened that the men Moses sent out to scout out the land returned to circulate false rumors about the land, causing the entire community to grumble against Moses. All these men died. Having spread false rumors of the land, they died in the plague, confronted by God. Only Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, were left alive of the men who went to scout out the land. When Moses told of all this to the people of Israel, they mourned long and hard. But early the next morning, they started out for the high hill country, saying, we're here, we're ready. Let's go up and attack the land that God promised us. We sinned, but now we're ready. But Moses said, why are you crossing God's command yet again? This won't work. Don't attack. God isn't with you in this. You'll be beaten badly by your enemies. The Amalekites and Canaanites are ready for you, and they'll kill you because you've left off obediently following God. God is not going to be with you in this. But they went anyway. Recklessly and arrogantly, they climbed to the hill, high hill country. But the chest of the covenant and Moses didn't budge from the camp. The Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in the hill country came out of the hills and attacked and beat them, a route all the way down to Hormah. Numbers chapter 15, matters of worship. God spoke to Moses, speak to the people of Israel, tell them, When you enter your homeland that I'm giving to you and sacrifice a fire gift to God, a whole burnt offering, or any sacrifice from the herd or flock for a vow offering or freewill offering at one of the appointed feasts as a pleasing fragrance for God, the one bringing the offering shall present to God a grain offering of 2 quarts of fine flour mixed with a quart of oil. With each lamb for the whole burnt offering or other sacrifice, prepare a quart of oil and a quart of wine as a drink offering. For a ram, prepare a grain offering of 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with 1¼ quarts of oil and 1¼ quarts of wine as a drink offering. Present it as a pleasing fragrance to God. When you prepare a young bull as a whole burnt offering, a sacrifice for a special vow, or a peace offering to God, bring the bull, a grain offering of 6 quarts of fine flour and 2 quarts of oil. Also bring 2 quarts of wine as a drink offering. It will be a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. Each bull or ram, each lamb or young goat is to be prepared in this same way. Carry out this procedure for each one, no matter how many you have to prepare. Every native-born Israelite is to follow this procedure when he brings a fire gift as a pleasing fragrance to God. In future generations, when a foreigner or visitor living at length among you presents a fire gift as pleasing fragrance to God, the same procedures must be followed. The community has the same rules for you and the foreigner living among you. This is the regular rule for future generations. You and the foreigner are the same before God. The same laws and regulations apply to both you and the foreigner who lives with you. God spoke to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel. Tell them, when you enter the land to which I'm bringing you, and you eat the food of that country, set some aside as an offering for God. From the first batch of bread dough, make a round loaf for an offering from the threshing floor. Down through the future generations, make this offering to God from each first batch of dough. But if you should get off the beaten track and not keep the commands which God spoke to Moses, any of the things that God commanded you under the authority of Moses, from the time that God first commanded you right up to the present time, and if it happened more or less by mistake and the congregation unaware of it, then the whole congregation is to sacrifice 1 young bull as a whole burnt offering, a pleasing fragrance to God, accompanied by a grain offering and drink offering as stipulated in the rules, and a he-goat as an absolution offering. The priest is to atone for the entire community of the people of Israel, and they will stand forgiven. The sin was not deliberate, and they offered to God the fire gift and absolution, offering for their inadvertence. The whole community of Israel, including the foreigners living there, will be absolved because everyone was involved in the error. But if it's just one person who sins by mistake, not realizing what he's doing, he is to bring a yearling she-goat as an absolution offering. The priest then is to atone for the person who accidentally sinned, to make atonement before God so that it won't be held against him. The same standard holds for everyone who sins by mistake. The native-born Israelites and the foreigners go by the same rules. But the person, native or foreigner, who sins defiantly, deliberately blaspheming God, must be cut off from his people. He has despised God's word. He has violated God's command. The person must be kicked out of the community, ostracized, left alone in his wrongdoing. Once during those wilderness years of the people of Israel, a man was caught gathering wood on the Sabbath. The ones who caught him hauled him before Moses, Aaron, and the entire congregation. They put him in custody until it became clear what to do with him. Then God spoke to Moses, "Give the man the death penalty? Yes, kill him." And the whole community hurling stones at him outside the camp. Boy, that's cold. So the whole community took him outside the camp and threw stones at him, an execution commanded by God and given through Moses. Wow. God spoke to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel. Tell them that from now on, they are to make tassels on the corners of their garments and to mark each corner tassel with a blue thread. When you look at these tassels, you'll remember and keep all the commandments of God and not get distracted by everything you feel or see that seduces you into infidelities. The tassels will signal remembrance and observance of all my commandments to live a holy life to God. I am your God who rescued you from the land of Egypt to be your personal God. Yes, I am God, your God." This is the word of the Lord.